In a time when gods and giants live in constant tension, the giants are plotting revenge. The reason? Thor's bloody wedding, an event that brings the tension to a boiling point. Loki, the mischievous god, is enjoying a moment of triumph. He has recovered Thor's lost hammer Mjolnir and restored the reputation of the Asgardians, the gods of Asgard. Emboldened by his recent heroic deed, he roams curiously through the realms of Midgard and Utgard in a falcon cloak. His wings lead him to the homestead of the mighty giant Geirröd. Hidden on the roof of the great hall, Loki tries to peek through a window opening. What is the giant plotting against gods and humans? But Geirröd, who surveys the roof from his high seat, spots the large bird. "Capture this intruder," he orders his servants. The air is thick with tension as the giant's hands reach toward the sky, ready to snatch Loki out of the air. The atmosphere remains tense as one of Geirröd's subordinates climbs the steep, tall roof of the hall. Loki is amused, watching the servant slip several times. Only in the last moment, as the servant's hand reaches for him, does Loki flap his wings. But he doesn't get far. As if by magic, his feet stick to the window. The giant has caught him. Standing before Geirröd, Loki's silence is met by the giant's piercing gaze. "Speak!" demands Geirröd. But Loki remains mute. He is locked away in a small, dark box, without food or drink for 2 months. When he is finally brought out, he is so weak that he reveals his true identity. Geirröd laughs triumphantly. "Swear to bring Thor here unarmed or starve in the box," the giant threatens. Loki hesitates. His loyalty to Thor weighs heavy. He continues his silence and is locked back in the box, where food and drink are withheld for another month. The giant holds all the cards, and Loki's fate seems sealed. The tension reaches its peak when Geirröd presents the weakened Loki once more. Loki relents and swears the demanded oaths to regain his freedom. When he suggests to Thor to visit Geirröd without his hammer Mjolnir, Thor is skeptical. But he recalls his last encounter with Geirröd and the bloody wedding where he killed innocent giants. Wishing to make peace with the peaceable giants, he sets off unarmed with Loki. On their journey, Thor and Loki make a stop at the friendly giantess Grit, who warns them about Geirröd. She describes the giant as cunning and crafty and offers Thor her magical staff, Griddarwall, her belt of strength, and her iron gloves. Thor hesitates at first, but Loki also advises him to be cautious. Perhaps Loki wants to punish Geirröd for imprisoning him and forcing him to flee. Ultimately, Thor accepts the magical staff, the iron gloves, and the belt of strength. He and Loki continue on their way, but the air is now tinged with a thin layer of caution and mistrust. What will await them at Geirröd? Will they be able to avert the looming danger? The story is far from over. Thor and Loki encounter unexpected difficulties while crossing the wide river Wimor. Thor puts on his belt of strength and braces the magical staff, Griddarwall, against the growing current. Loki clings to Thor's belt of strength to avoid being swept away by the raging waters. In the middle of the river, the current intensified so much that the waves flooded over Thor's shoulders, and Loki nearly drowned. Furious, Thor yelled, "Do not grow, Wymore, for I wade through you. If you grow, then my Asgardian power will rise to the heavens." He looked upstream and saw that the sudden increase in water was caused by Geirröd's daughter Yalp. She stood with her legs spread on rocks on both banks, releasing an immense amount of urine into the river to strengthen the current. Enraged, Thor picked up a stone from the river and hurled it precisely between the giantess's legs. The stone hit its mark, and the flow of the river stopped at its source. With a sense of triumph but also caution, Thor and Loki continued on their way, aware that more tests and perhaps deceptions could await them. The stone hit its mark, and the tidal wave came to a standstill. As Thor stormed towards the shore, he lost his footing. He grabbed onto a rowan bush and pulled both himself and Loki safely to land. Since then, it's said that the rowan tree was Thor's savior. In the evening, they reached Geirröd's farm and were accommodated in the goat house. A single chair stood in the hut. Thor found this insulting and sat down, still holding his staff. Suddenly, the chair lifted and pressed him against the ceiling. Thor braced his magical staff, Geirröd, against the roof beams and pushed himself and the chair back down. A cracking sound was heard. Geirröd's daughters, who had tried to crush Thor, broke their spines. Geirröd then invited Thor into a hall for a contest. Several large fires were burning in the center. Thor had cautiously put on his iron gloves and kept his hands hidden behind his back. He chose the seat most worthy of facing the host, directly opposite the high seat on which Geirröd sat. Geirröd leapt up, grabbed a glowing piece of iron from the fire with tongs, and hurled it at Thor. Sparks flew in all directions, and the giant roared his challenge. What was Thor without his hammer Mjolnir? Thor thrust his arms forward and caught the glowing iron with his iron gloves. The force of the throw knocked him back a few steps, but he stepped forward again and hurled the glowing piece of iron back at Geirröd. "I am Thor, not Odin," thundered Thor. "You invited me for a peaceful contest. What kind of giant are you, breaking the laws of hospitality?" With these words, he hurled the glowing piece of iron back. Geirröd had just managed to jump behind an iron pillar supporting the roof in time, but the force of Thor's throw was so mighty that the glowing iron went through the pillar, through Geirröd's heart, and finally through the wall of the house to become lodged in the rock outside. That was the end of Geirröd, but not the end of the tensions between the Asgardians and the giants. Loki, who had persuaded Thor to make this ill-fated visit, received no thanks, and Balder, the shining god, began to have ominous dreams. The balance between the worlds was disturbed, and everyone sensed that further conflicts were inevitable.